Well, good morning. Another Monday is upon us. I walked outside this morning and it was chillier than I thought it was going to be. I had to go back in and get my jacket. Rained all weekend long, total washout. Still cloudy, but I read that the sun is supposed to come out later today. How are you doing? How was your weekend? Our service yesterday at Genesis was amazing. We had a group of men in that called from a ministry called Loving Hands, and they gave their testimonies. It's a 2-year program for men that struggle with addictions. And every weekend they go out to different churches and speak and give their testimonies, and that's how they fund their ministry, take in love offerings. And it was a powerful time. It started off with amazing worship where the presence of God was just tangible. It was so powerful, and people were responding to his presence, just, going down to the altar and worshiping, and it just was powerful. And then when the men got up and gave their testimonies, man, there is just something about hearing what the Lord has done in someone else's life, how he has brought them from darkness into light. And when you share your testimony with someone else, it's life-giving and it's powerful, and the Holy Spirit is just really present. And so that leads me into my thought process. If you're friends with me on Facebook, you're watching this video, but I posted something last night, just some thoughts that I had, and I want to talk about it a little bit more today. Church, I've watched over the years, and I'm sure many of you have watched too, that the church, and that encompasses any church, has changed over the years. It has evolved into what it is today, and more and more people are not attending church in person. More and more people are watching online, or just not attending or watching at all. And Nat and I, my husband and I, were talking the other day how when we were brought up, it was just the normal thing to do was to go to church. And now it's just not the normal thing anymore. That if we didn't go, obviously we have to go since I'm pastoring, but if we weren't and we didn't go, there was guilt or this feeling of something's not right with us. And that's not so much the feeling anymore. But I've also watched church, like I grew up, I don't want to go into my whole testimony, but I grew up periodically going to churches. And my family was not like sold out and in church all the time. And we went to multiple different denominational churches, just for one reason or another. And so I kind of experienced a lot of different denominations and different churches. And then we moved to Florida, and I ended up going to, getting invited to church by a girl that I went to high school with. And it was a church unlike anything I had ever been in before. And it was a totally different new denomination. It was Assemblies of God, which is what I am now. And it was just different, and I didn't understand a lot of things that were going on, but yet there was something that kept drawing me back, because I felt something there that I never felt in another church before. I experienced something I'd never experienced in a church before. And looking back now, I couldn't put my finger on it then, but looking back now, I understand that it was the power and the presence of God, the power of his Holy Spirit. And it just kept drawing me back. And I started learning things I had never learned before, and about having a personal relationship with Jesus, not just knowing who he is or what he did or why he came to the earth, but actually having a personal relationship with him, like I do with you or with my husband or any other person. And no one had ever told me that before. And so once I understood that and I experienced that, there's no going back. And so as I've watched churches over the years, and they're, and I'm not pointing out any one church, I'm just saying I've watched the power and the presence of God in a church service disappear. And why? Why is that happening? And I've watched the emergence of a social program or entertainment get pushed to the forefront in a church, and many people leaving church not being impacted at all. It's like going to a concert. Where's the power? Where's the presence of God? And so, when you look back to the first century church, after Jesus was crucified, died, rose again, and then ascended into heaven, all the disciples and other followers gathered together in the upper room, and Jesus promised that the Holy Spirit would come, and he did. And so when they gathered together in unity, in one accord, and they were praying and seeking God, seeking the Holy Spirit, the power and presence of God showed up in such a mighty way that they all started speaking in a heavenly language that they didn't even understand. We label it as tongues, but it was a heavenly language that it was so powerful that it looked like tongues of fire were on their heads. And so when you look at that, that was the first explosion of the power and presence of God in our church services. And then after that, Peter preaches this message under the power of the Holy Spirit, and thousands of people get saved in Jerusalem. Thousands at one time. And that is a prime example of the power and presence of God. That is the prime example of what church should look like. Yes, thousands of years have gone by. Over 2,000 years has gone by. But God is the same yesterday, today, forever. He said, I never change. And so what he instituted and put in place in that first century church is what he still wants to be in place today in our churches. And in my life personally, the Lord has really been working on me and speaking to me and reminding me what church should be about, what my personal life with him should be about. If my life gets dry and empty and just feeling out of sorts, like God's not here, then I need to reevaluate and say, why is this happening? And I need to get back on my knees and pray and get back into his word and seek and ask for his Holy Spirit, his presence and power to show up in my life. And if we have to do that in our personal life, how much more do we need to do that in our churches? Because it starts with us. When we go to church, we are the temple of the Holy Spirit. When we go to a building, to the church, we are being the church, but we are taking the power and the presence of the Holy Spirit into the building. And when we all gather together and do that, bring the Holy Spirit with us, then there is massive power in a group, the group setting. And so when that happens, revival starts with us. If we want to see revival, if we want to see God and encounter God in our churches, then it has to start in our private prayer life, personal devotion time. So then when we show up, we're bringing it with us. And when we all do that, my goodness, imagine what our churches can look like. And so I see the Lord doing that at Genesis. And it's exciting, and I'm so pumped about it. And if you're not experiencing that and you want to, every believer should want to. It's like nothing I could ever explain. Once you experience the glory of God, the power of God, the presence of God, you don't want anything else. And you want to be in it all the time. So, again, I am preaching this morning, and I'm preaching to myself. Here's the deal. In a lost, dark, dying world, difficult world, we need the presence of God even more than ever. We need an encounter with him more than ever. And so if you are down, if you are discouraged, if you are feeling like, where is God? He hasn't moved. Maybe it's been you. And maybe it's time to seek his presence and his power once again, and his glory once again. Find yourself in your prayer closet at home. Find yourself a good church that is seeking God's power and his presence. Get plugged in and be amazed at what he does. This video is already 10 minutes, so I'm going to let you go. Love you guys. Let me hear what you have to say about this topic. Have a great Monday. Have a great week. We'll talk again soon.